by Jennifer Smoak, Fantasy Football League guru on 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. So, Jennifer, do you want to get this out in front of Paul right now about the decision on who he played, Allen Robinson, at wide receiver that cost you a win?
Stop. I knew you were going to say that. No, it's not Paul's fault. I mean, I took a risk. I mean, I just have a bunch of people on my poop list. I don't know if I can say the word I want to say. P-O-O-P.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like from last week, one of them being Stafford. I'm not exactly sure what happened between him and Allen and if Allen pissed him off or something, because he acted as if he wasn't even on the field. And even after the game, the coach even said they need to start utilizing Allen more. It's like, yeah, no kidding. Thank you for doing that now after the game. I think he had 2 targets and just was a no-show. And even Matthew Berry, who does the, ESPN fantasy show, even was, saying he was supposed to be up for a big game, and he was not. He was a complete bust, got me 2 points. And if I would have played Antonio Gibson or Waddle over him, I would have won this last week by 1 point.
Whoa. That's one.
So it's sickening, but at the same time, that's what the first week is about, is seeing how they're going to utilize players and seeing how people are going to play. And now I'm going to put him on my bench, and I'm sure he'll have an all-star weekend.
Well, would you have won by 1 point had your opponent played Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kareem Hunt instead of Cam Akers and Dalvin Cook?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't have.
So here's the thing. That's my thing. I don't get mad if no matter what I did, the opponent, if they did the same thing and made the best roster, would have beat me. So
are we going to start a Jennifer Smoak's poop list, one name a week?
Yeah, it's Stafford. It's 100% Stafford this last week. I don't know what was going on. There were so many times that Allen was open, but yeah, like Paul said, it's one of those things that I have to not do that this year. I can't sit there and beat myself up about who I leave on the bench, because everyone could do that every week. And that's what fantasy is. It's about taking your chances, and you're always going to have regrets. But, sometimes your players don't show up. And like I said, I'll end up benching Allen now until I see more improvement. And, it's hard when you have someone like Cup on your team that you're constantly competing for targets with. And I'm not really sure why the other teams don't double team him, but, it is what it is.
I just wanted to point out Matthew Berry no longer works for ESPN.
Or NFL or wherever he works.
And he works for NBC.
NBC Sports.
Okie dokie. But he does a fantasy football show.
Yes, he does. I'm just giving you a hard time. So what did you like about your team this week?
All right. Well, my top 2 players this week who I'm loving is Josh Allen, number 1. I mean, man, oh man, I want a Josh Allen jersey for Christmas this year, Bubba. I want that wrapped up and given to me. He's my favorite player right now. He completed 26 of 31 passes for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed 10 times for 56 yards and another touchdown. And he is just incredible. He does make me nervous because he'll run when they're like up and he doesn't need to be running. And I feel like he takes some risk. And every time someone tackles him, I yell at them and scream. And I'm like, get up. And I panic that he's hurt. But I mean, he is just incredible. And this week, I'm up against Mahomes. So it's going to be a battle of, the quarterbacks this week. Because as y'all all saw, Mahomes had an insane week last week, even after losing one of his biggest targets, Tyreek Hill, to Miami this year. But him and Kelsey looked like a dynamic duo per usual. He was, had a huge game. So that's going to be interesting to see that matchup. But also my other very impressive player this week was A.J. Brown. And he was so exciting to watch. I wasn't sure how him and Hurts would play together, but he had 10 receptions for 155 yards, and it's good to see that connection between them two. So I'm excited about him this year as well.
Derrick Henry was a big pick for you. I know he's capable of running for 200 yards this week, but you're going to have to try to let that slowly develop with him.
Here's the thing is, it was, of course, so towards the end of the games on Sunday, I still had James Conner and Derrick Henry to play, my top 2 running backs. So I had some faith that they would do something big for me. Unfortunately, Derrick didn't have some powerhouse game like everyone's used to seeing. But at the same time, I know last year he had a very slow start in his first game of the week. And, I mean, he's still Derrick Henry. He still ended up with 82 rushing yards. And even though he didn't have some explosive run or he didn't have a touchdown, I still have hope in him. And I still think that, you know, he is going to be a dominant player this year as long as he stays healthy. I am a little worried about him going up against the Bills defense, who had a humongous game last week. They had 7 sacks, 3 interceptions, allowed less than 13 points, only allowed less than 299 yards. So that's a little nerve-wracking for me. But at the same time, I feel like if he plays the way that we all know he can play, I think he can still put up some points for me. And then Connor still had a good game last week, but when you're sitting there constantly playing from behind and the Chiefs get up on the Cardinals like they did, it's hard to run the ball. Now, they did still give him 5 receptions for 29 receiving yards, so it's good to see a running back utilized as both a runner and getting some passing yards. But at the same time, you know, that was hard because they were constantly trying to come back from behind. And of course, I had the Cardinals kicker, and he had 1 great point for 1 extra point, and because the Cardinals kept going for it on 4th down, and every time they would score, they would do a 2-point, go for 2-point conversion. So that was also very exciting.
Everything you've described about week 1 is why I got out of fantasy football.
Yeah.
No, it's it was like, why do we do this to ourselves? But then when you win, it's like, that's why, you know?
Yeah, Jen, your matchup this week is tough.
It's awful.
I think your quarterbacks, Mahomes and Allen, might cancel each other out. Jonathan Taylor on Meredith's team here. Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams.
Are you kidding?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I'll tell you, fantasy darling Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's about one of the only good things going on in Detroit. Mark Andrews. You know, this is
Saquon Barkley. If the draft was this week, would be like one of the top 5 picks.
Probably.
No, of course. But wasn't he one of the top 5 picks when I had him 2 years ago? And then, he got hurt again. So that's real great. He definitely wasn't hurt last week. Yeah, she had the 2 top rushing yards, or the 2 players with the top rushing yards last week, Jonathan and Saquon. I mean, both of them had over 160 yards. It's insane. But I will say, you know, it's great to see Saquon have such a great game, especially after seeing him get hurt and having the Giants win that game. But yeah, I'm very worried about that matchup. And then, of course, Devontae Adams. I mean, I was sitting there curious to see how he would be with the Raiders because we all know he was the top target for Aaron Rodgers last year, and he's an amazing player. But I didn't know how well he'd be utilized when you have other weapons on the Raiders offense. But it didn't seem to slow him down. I think he nearly doubled the rest of the team's receiving targets. And he, looking at how the Cardinals defense played last week, I'm sure he'll demolish them this week too. So Mark Andrews had a quiet week last week, but also Lamar had a slow start, but I was playing Lamar and he sure didn't end up with a slow start.
Yeah,
so
that 70-yard touchdown kind of put that opponent of yours in overdrive, didn't it?
Yep, he had 3 touchdown passes, and that was Bateman's only 1 of 2 receptions last week, and yeah, that definitely put Lamar up on those scoreboards. So,
all right. At this time last year, you were ready to sell everybody. You were ready to not continue the season. You're kind of like the Cowboys are now after the injury to Dak. You at least have a team. If you score those kind of points, you're going to be in this thing in the end.
Exactly. And you can't look at it like Meredith had over 190 fantasy points last week. I mean, her team just was explosive. But, you know, I can't let that worry me, and I can't look at the projections. Last week I was projected to win, and here I am as a loser. So, it's interesting because you see how good someone's team is, but then you can have a completely dead week, especially when it comes to your matchups. And I feel like in the past when I would have these losses, I was just completely, torn down, and I felt like my team just wasn't that good. But I'm very confident in my players. I know I have good players. I just need them to perform. It's like Debo. I have Debo last week, and he's playing in a monsoon. And so it's like, how are they going to sit there and utilize him in catches and get him receiving yards whenever it's pouring down rain and nobody can hold on to the ball? But the good positive about that is with Elijah Mitchell now out on injury reserve with a knee injury, I do feel like he will be utilized a lot more. And I'm hoping to see a better matchup this week and see what all he can do, because even though he had a touchdown last week and had 52 rushing yards and 2 receptions for 14 yards, I do still feel like it wasn't a huge week for him.
Yeah, Jen, you have 2 tight ends on your roster currently, and I know you're trying to feel that position out, but I would venture over to your waiver wire, and there are several running backs, including Jeff Wilson Jr., who's going to be the starter in San Francisco.
Former East Texan, by the way.
Yeah, isn't he from like Elkhart or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. Is there, and he should get some points, as is J.K. Dobbins.
Well, you were talking about tight ends.
I'm saying
you're
you
gonna
got
get
to
rid of-
drop
okay.
one of the
No,
tight ends.
Dad, he's saying drop somebody.
Yeah, and
Which really, I'd rather just drop both my tight ends because they suck, but that's okay. Okay. I need PJ. Yeah, and you said earlier, that the guy I'm playing, Amon-Ra St. Brown, is the star of Detroit. You forgot to say anything about Hawkinson, but that's okay.
okay.
I mean, Hawkinson didn't have a terrible week last week, but yeah, like I said last week, that's one of my. I mean, that is my weakest position, is my tight end position. What do you think about? Don't y'all just love Taysom Hill? And he's still listed as a tight end, but he didn't actually get very many points last week. But I am interested to see how they continue to utilize him in that tight end position. But I just love watching him play. He's so it was exciting to watch.
Go with him because Brigham Young's hot right now, and he's a BYU graduate. So use that momentum.
Oh, boo! We're not mentioning them in Baylor County. We're not saying that. I hated that loss.
He had 15 points last week. The best tight end in the league, actually, scoring-wise, was O.J. Howard, which would have been the first time in his career that would have happened. So,
well,
was he even drafted by anybody? Would he have been drafted by anybody?
No.
Okay.
No.
And then I also want to mention another reason I lost last week is because Casey had Jamar Chase and Michael Pittman. And do I need to say anything more about that? That first of all, both of those games went into overtime to continue to stress me out. Both of those players ended up scoring a touchdown at the very end of the game to get their team into overtime. Jamar Chase actually should have ended up with 2 touchdowns, and I'm shocked that the Bengals did not challenge that one call because they probably regret it now that they got a loss. But Jamar Chase is just incredible. 10 receptions for 129 yards and a touchdown. And then Michael Pittman had 9 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. Those 2 are 2 star receivers, and she has both of them on her team, and that is pretty much what killed me last week.
Yeah, Jen lost, and her opponent put up a goose egg with one position to Cam Akers.
At running back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rub it in, Paul.
Okay, well, that's because Allen, who you told me to play, put up 2 points.
See, there you go.
Still 2 more than 0.
It's in her.
2 more than 0.
That emotion's there, Paul.
Yeah.
So who are you? Okay, Josh Allen starts at quarterback. Your running back is Derrick Henry, and who else this week?
James Conner.
James Conner.
Debo Samuel.
And then,
and
A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown.
And Jalen Waddle.
And Waddle. He has a really cool dance when he scores.
I know they do a little penguin dance. But I'm excited to see what Jalen did last week because, that's another team that has a lot of huge weapons. Again, Tyreek Hill. And so I was excited to see that he did get, a lot of points from me because I wasn't sure exactly how all that would end up. So I'm hoping that he pulls through for me this week because that is who I'm going with as my flex position.
Does anyone have Johan Dotson?
Jahan.
Yeah. The Washington wide receiver?
Oh, usually people don't grab Washington players. No, I'm just kidding.
No, they don't. I looked.
Just to keep an eye on him. Just to keep an eye on him. That's pretty impressive for a rookie to do what he did.
No, he did have a great week last week. And I actually said that when we were watching the game, Daniel mentioned that that's definitely somebody that we need to look out for. But now that when the girls hear this segment, they'll probably grab him first.
All right. Okay. Paul, anything else?
Does Meredith draft Patrick Mahomes first so she doesn't have to change her team name?
No, she didn't have him last year.
Okay.
I think she had Lamar last year, but she didn't grab Patrick first this year.
Okay.
She grabbed Jonathan Taylor.
So which girls won the first week? Because we know obviously you didn't.
It was Casey against. Do I have to say this?
Yeah.
It was Casey. And by the way, I just want to mention that Saquon Barkley was drafted in the 4th round this year, the 31st overall pick. So that's insane that, you get a pick like that and he did what he did last week. But anyways, to answer your question, last week, Meredith won. Casey beat me. Kara with a K won, and Persia won by 3 points. The girl planner, Taylor, had DK Metcalf, and they just weren't throwing it to him towards the end of the game, and so Persia ended up winning with 3 points.
All right.
Ended up winning by 3 points.
You need a win because drop 0-2. You drop 0-2 and have lose a tiebreaker to Mare Bear if you don't beat her. And so you got a lot of pressure on your team this week.
Thanks, Dad. I wasn't already feeling it. Well, y'all just hope that Patrick gets stopped tonight by the Chargers and he doesn't have a big game.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll be rooting for the Chargers anyway.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you want to say goodbye to anybody?
Bubba Bear.
Yep, okay. And Paul, say hi to
Paul.
And
Paul, yes.
And Jennifer, we appreciate your time on Thursdays at 5:30. Fantasy Football
Bye,
League
guys.
Guru had a tough loss. Had the big night from Josh Allen. Looked like vaulted her into a heck of a win, but it just did not pan out that way. Who's better, Jamar?